scheduled. What is up, wrestling fans? I was watching for it. I was waiting for it. I finally called it. I was ready for that live. What's up, wrestling fans? What's up, Kevin? It's Thursday.
It is Thursday on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, and I'd like to start, Doug, by saying thanks to everyone. Originally, we obviously do Sunday night shows, but Doug and I thought with tonight's main event topic being Forbidden Door, we could give you a more complete and thorough update by having a Thursday night show instead. And Doug, I have to say, ever since we announced that, all I've heard all week is about the two old men who were going to argue and ramble on Thursday night live TV. And I just have to say, we're touched and we appreciate that.
We do appreciate that. Although we're in lockstep most of the time, but we will certainly ramble. I don't know how much we'll argue, but
we will see. We could.
I mean, I could be medicated to be this energetic. I don't know. And focused.
He's on something, folks. It's the opening bell that he's on. We got a lot of news, Doug, to discuss and go through. Before we get to our preview of Forbidden Door, lots of personnel-related comings and goings, and we will start our news segment this week with on-screen debuts. Since our last episode, we've seen two long-awaited debuts with WWE, the Wyatt Six, Jacob Fatu. More of those, about those at the end of the show. We've seen some non-storyline changes as well that you may not have heard of, and that being John Swiatek was promoted to the head writer of SmackDown last week, replacing Ryan Callahan, who left without much explanation. We had another pivotal behind-the-scenes departure, Chris Kaiser, who was the executive VP of WWE Television. He was hired by WWE back in 2015. He was working at Viacom Networks at the time. He'd been promoted to executive vice president of television in June 2021. He worked on WWE reality and documentary series, including WWE 24, WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, Total Divas. WWE is a hard thing to get out. He also was helped helm that Bray Wyatt documentary, which was fantastic.
Oh, that's an excellent documentary.
It's strange to see him go. I do believe, though, that the official word on both of those was cost synergy. So you can look to this as being further fallout of the merger between UFC and WWE. This next departure, though, Doug, is one that is the choice of the individual. And I hate this one because I love her work. But we're saying goodbye to backstage reporter Kayla Braxton. Who I mean, she's fantastic. Kayla's been with WWE for nearly 8 years. She left local news to join NXT, first as a ring announcer and then moving her way up through the organization. In addition to her backstage interview duties on both Raw and SmackDown, Kayla became host of many of the PLE kickoff shows. She helmed the Bump for the majority of its existence. In her announcement on social media, she gave a shout out to the Wise Man. He was a comic on-screen antagonist to Kayla for years, but behind the scenes, it was obvious that he was Kayla's mentor. He had a very much esteem and affection for her. Tomorrow's her last night. She's going to be on the Madison Square Garden version of SmackDown. So good luck to Kayla Braxton in whatever she chooses to do next.
Best of luck in her future endeavors, although she's not been future endeavored.
She made the choice to go, which I do hate. She really was good at what she did. Someone else is...
I was gonna say, I had read that, she said that since moving to LA that, a lot of doors have opened up for her. I don't know about any forbidden doors opening up, but, it sounds like there are bigger, brighter things in her future. And she did go out of her way to mention that, if she was going to stay in wrestling, she would stay with the number one wrestling giant. So,
and she's got such ties there and obvious love and affection for Paul Heyman, as we all do,
right?
Rightfully so. But her leaving the Bump last year, if you notice, you see a lot more Jackie Redmond and a lot less Kayla on Friday nights, and so it was probably a matter of time that her move to LA was having her look for more Hollywood opportunities. Hopefully, she finds them.
Yes.
Moving to AEW, just real quickly, Doug, Darby Allin has been granted extensive time off to heal from his multitude of current injuries. So
is it a bus attack injury or is it a EVP attack injury that he needs to heal from? I'm so confused now.
the dude falls off mountains, hung from the ceiling, hit by buses. Just enjoy your time off, Darby. Look both ways before crossing the street.
I'm going to go dark. I'm still here. I'm going to go dark. I need to fix something. It's bugging me. I am still here, though.
While Doug is taking care of that, I will talk about another coming and going. This one not necessarily going to happen. It's more conjecture than it is anything, but the last several weeks has seen an uptick in reports that Shane McMahon is looking to join AEW. There's no confirmation at all on the validity of these rumors, but what we can report is, as being true, is that Shane is not under any contract whatsoever with the current WWE. There is nothing then that would prevent him from joining Tony Khan's promotion if both sides had an interest in doing so. Doug, I don't see it happening.
I don't see that happening either. I'm still terribly out of focus. My camera's jacked. Hold on.
It's all right.
I totally do not see Shane showing up on WWE or AEW TV. That's not happening. It's like Tony Khan showing up on AEW or Shad Khan showing up on NXT.
I guess we can never say never, but honestly, if this were going to happen, I would almost think it'd be more likely to Shane giving the middle finger to his dad who fired him,
right? And that's
when Vince was around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know that he has problems with the brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Very big announcement this week for the city of Indianapolis. Indianapolis was announced on Monday as the host of not just the 2025 Royal Rumble, but also future SummerSlam and WrestleMania, with both of those PLEs being two-night events. Royal Rumble will take place February 1st, 2025 from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Notably, that February date is later than usual for Royal Rumble. Part of that decision-making process by WWE was to avoid Super Bowl weekend. While the dates and even the years on both SummerSlam and WrestleMania are not yet known, what we do know is SummerSlam is in Cleveland in a month. And then reports are the 2026 event, which has already been announced for Minneapolis, is still scheduled to be the first two-night SummerSlam, which means the 2025 edition isn't the one coming to Indianapolis either. So it's going to be at least 2027 at the earliest for SummerSlam. Who knows when the Mania will happen? Still, it's a new sort of thing, an unprecedented. Basically, they bid for 5 events in one big announcement. So I can imagine that the money on that was pretty lucrative for WWE.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next is an AEW story, Doug. We have a new way of watching AEW pay-per-views. Triller is now the home of all of AEW's events since their start. The events were offered up in a variety of packages based on the year, with the most expensive package, of course, being for 2023 events. It's the first time where all prior AEW pay-per-view content is available in one place. This hopefully gets us one step closer to an eventual Peacock WWE network style package where we can subscribe to future content at a lower price point.
Good. Yes, please.
We're not there yet, but this is at least a start where AEW has all of their past events streaming in one location now.
Yes, I would love to see something where we are all joined together in a network type situation with AEW. That can't happen soon enough.
At the price that the pay-per-views cost,
right?
Absolutely cannot happen soon enough. Some more programming news, and we know the date of NXT leaving USA and going to the CW. The date also confirms that WWE is going to be keeping NXT on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., which at one point was some conjecture. The first CW broadcast will be Tuesday, October 1st. So mark your calendars. That's when you can begin making that switch to NXT on CW. Sorry, Billy Corgan.
Kevin, that's William Patrick.
William Patrick. Apparently, though, it's a new day where we all play nice with each other in the sandbox, and so NWA will be allowed to continue their relationship with the CW on the CW app. Not going to be displaced by NXT. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, that's very, very generous of Triple H.
He's a very generous man. He's got
It's,
reason to be happy and generous when you're that far ahead
sure,
of everybody else.
it's good to be the king.
When you're on the roll, the king of kings. More
Indeed.
WWE programming news. We now know also when the behind the scenes documentary of WrestleMania 40 will be airing. This documentary will premiere on WWE's YouTube channel next Wednesday, July 3rd. Originally, this documentary, Doug, they announced this and even were advertising it as being the week after WrestleMania, all the way back in April. And there's not really been a great explanation for why the original air date was canceled, other than it wasn't ready. So if it wasn't ready within a week, okay, but why has it taken 3 months? Still, it's good to at least know that we are going to have it, because it's an interesting story.
Do you think it's taken this long to edit it into the actual interesting story that it is? Because do you think there's a level of expectation that's been set with everything going into WrestleMania 40 that, you know, they needed to like cut it to actually tell the story that was actually kind of told itself during that time?
You know, you make an interesting point, because we know so much about how the on-screen actions were being dictated by off-screen events that we are all
Right.
aware of. So to that extent, we kind of know the story, but surely there's much that has yet been reported on, and there's got to be multiple sides considering all the parties
Exactly.
involved. So I do think it's going to be fascinating. I do think it's interesting too, that we have this coming on on YouTube and not
YouTube,
their,
yeah.
you know, Peacock. So not sure why that decision was made. That's a little odd to me.
I wonder if there's a deal with YouTube behind the scenes to drop it there first, because you know
And that could, yeah.
this is a bigger corporate money making machine now than it's ever been. Being part of gosh, what are they called with UFC, TKO or whatever they are?
TKO.
Yeah.
Yep, TKO. Doug, we're going to end tonight's opening bell with condolences to Roman Reigns, who lost his father this week. In the wrestling world, to the rest of us, we lost a legendary figure in the Anoa'i family with the passing on Tuesday of Sika, one half of the Wild Samoans.
Yep.
As way of tribute, just a little biography here. Amazing story. Sika, along with his brother Afa, for newer fans who may not understand the whole history of the bloodline, and particularly Sika and Afa, but they terrorized the old school wrestling territories in the WWF back in the day. They debuted in Stampede Wrestling all the way back in 1973. The Wild Samoans pretty much already had their gimmick down, for which they would become famous. They wrestled barefoot. They had these large wild afros. They wrestled in the sarongs. They ate raw fish in the ring. They rarely spoke, usually had a manager or mouthpiece. In addition to Stampede, the Samoans spent the 70s in the NWA territories in Detroit, Memphis, Alabama, Puerto Rico, and more. They moved to the WWF in 1980, at which point they were managed by Captain Lou Albano. They won their first of 3 WWF Tag Team Championships that year by defeating Ivan Putski and Tito Santana. They left WWF that year for runs in New Japan and the NWA's Mid-South Wrestling territory, managed there by Skandar Akbar. And then they also won the Mid-South Championships there. My first exposure to the Samoans would come with their next move after they joined Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1982. They were managed there by Sonny King, and then that year they won the NWA National Tag Team Championships from the Fabulous Freebirds. I love going through all these old names. They vacated those titles, though, to return to the WWF for 2 years in the mid-'80s, after which time, of course, there they won a couple more World Tag Team Championships. They spent time in the AWA and then with NWA's Jim Crockett Promotions, among many, many others. That's also when I had a lot more screen time with them. The Samoans semi-retired from in-ring competition in 1988, having only the occasional one-off appearance here and there. Sika, though, remained very active in the sport of wrestling by training others at the Wild Samoa Training Center. In addition to their 3 reigns as WWF World Tag Champs, the Wild Samoans were multi-time NWA World Tag Champs. They were AWA Southern Tag Champs, WWC North American Tag Champs in Puerto Rico, and many, many more, which are just way too many to name the Wild Samoans were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2007 and in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2012. Sika, this I didn't know, Doug. Sika also served his country. He was a merchant marine prior to embarking on the world of pro wrestling in that career. He also was a dock worker before becoming a professional wrestler. But Sika was 79 years old. Doug, what are some of your memories or first memories of
my goodness,
Sika and the Wild Samoans?
I'm pretty sure just being terrified of the Wild Samoans.
They were terrified.
I mean, they were
legit.
I mean, and we're talking, coming up in the 80s, I might have been, let's see, I believe I debuted the same year the Wild Samoans did. We're going to put a number on it. So by 83, I was, little 10-year-old Doug's running around being terrified. These crazy wild fish head eating Samoans.
They played, and politically correct or not, they played the role of like island savages, but they played it so convincingly that I bought in. As a child, I was truly, Abdullah the Butcher, there were certain folks that seemed like, okay, maybe this stuff isn't real, but these guys are legit, like guys I wouldn't want to even approach. Because
you're right. Abdullah the Butcher, the Wild Samoans, and Ox Baker. Terrifying. Terrifying.
For sure. One of my favorite memories of Afa and Sika is NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, would come to the town where Doug and I grew up. They would occasionally play the high school that we both graduated from. They would come to the Logan Fieldhouse. And my father was a teacher at the Logan High School for many years. But as such, for this particular night of NWA action, Dad parked as normal in his parking spot in the teacher's parking lot, which apparently was doubling as the parking lot for the wrestling talent. So at the end of the show, here comes, my dad and myself walking out the opposite way of most of the crowd was going. And here I am. If Doug was 10, I'm, 11. I'm like a year and a half older than Doug. And there is the Wild Samoans. And I don't know if it was Afa or Sika, which one it was, but I was shocked that these guys were not grunting. Dude was sitting on the trunk of a car, chatting up one of the young women of Logan County, and I'm like, Afa or Sika was like is trying to get in good with the local female population, as it were. And I was just shocked he knew English. Like, oh my gosh, he doesn't seem like a savage at all.
And with that story, you can expect a Logan County addition to the Bloodlines.
We don't hear much of Jethro Anawahi, but he is on his way.
Well played.
That would throw the whole story for a loop, wouldn't it?
Oh my goodness, the shame of the bloodline. Let's pitch that. Get Triple H on the phone stat.
But you talk about an influence, Doug. Back when the wrestling world was truly small, here are these two men from a small little island make their way to California, make their way into the wrestling business up with Stu Hart in Canada. Next thing you know, they spend the next 40, 50 years touring the world, training people, obviously siring other superstars, as it were. And this was, again, they went, you go, you work a territory, you scare people half to death. A couple of years later, to keep things fresh, you move to the next territory. They live that old school mentality. And I have a deep, deep love and affection for the memories I have of the Wild Samoans, who were one of my favorites back in the day.
They just scared me. Really scared me.
Rest in peace. And definitely our condolences to Roman and the entire family and the friends and fans of the Wild Samoans. With that, Doug, let us move to our main event.
So our main event has probably like 82 matches. Let me see here. I've just scrolled through. It looks like there are 13 matches on this thing right now, Kevin. What is Tony Khan doing? This is going to go for 3 days.
This is what Tony Khan does. He goes big. And now that he goes more often with the pay-per-views, maybe he doesn't have to go so big. That is obviously something that we could certainly debate. I think actually there is no debate. You and I both agree that we could
this is
follow Triple H's lead, is that less is
yes.
more sometimes, and you can make some of these matches mean more. And before we get into the match by match previews, Doug, I do have a question for you about Forbidden Door, just in general as a concept.
Yes,
I remember when they announced this, the first one that was 3 years ago, and it was at the time like a revolutionary concept of these two promotions coming together. Will American fans embrace those pro wrestling artists that they're maybe not that familiar with? How would they buy in? How will they do the promotion? Who's making the booking decisions? There was a lot that was intriguing about it. It's still a very good card, and it's a very intriguing idea. But now that this is in its third year, and after WWE has opened itself up to working with TNA, other promotions in Japan, is it as novel a concept or as big a deal now to have Forbidden Door as it was? Do you think it's lost a little bit just because it's a little more commonplace now?
The only thing that could elevate Forbidden Door is to have CMLL and Triple A on the same show at the same time and have one guy go over the other guy. That's the only way that this elevates, right? Because that seems to be like the final wrestling feud. Because I think with Vince being gone, that the novelty and the sheer awesomeness is diminished. And it's also just like there's too much Star Wars right now. And yes, I did just say that. You get to this oversaturation point where it's just not that special anymore. And then
I agree.
I don't think we're to the bad writing and directing that some Star Wars shows have. Looking at you, Acolyte, but yeah, we have that oversaturation where it's just not that special.
Again, the card looks solid. There's some matches that look amazing, but it does feel more like just your standard pay-per-view than it does something. And maybe that's us as jaded wrestling fans who have gotten so much of what we want
now.
Spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is hard though, once the bloom is off the rose, for it to continue to feel special, to see, it's harder to shock us about like, oh my gosh, this man or woman has come over from this rival.
Yeah.
It's commonplace now, which is great. I prefer it that way. It does keep things fresh. Goes back to that Wild Samoan story. They kept fresh by moving on and having different opponents. I like the concept. It's just not quite unique any longer.
Right. Yeah, it's not. But I mean, again, I'm not going to complain about the card or the matches. Some like MJF's opponent, I'm not even, I get a little confused about some of these things and some of the booking decisions that kind of lead up to it. But okay.
That's maybe one of the things we call out before we go into the match by match. But in prior years, it has been a co-promotion of AEW and New Japan. This year, it's a triad. We get CMLL added to that mix. I think, though, that the CMLL aspect is where it does get a little more confusing. I believe a lot of American fans have more familiarity with some of the Japanese talent just because they have come over a little more often. And with CMLL, there's a lot of masked wrestlers, and sometimes I think with a lot of very colorful masked wrestlers that you're not that familiar with, it's a little harder for an American audience to become invested or to know who is who.
And it also gets confusing for the people who do know who the masked wrestlers are, and then the wrestlers show up as masked wrestlers when they haven't been masked wrestlers for quite a while, only to be unmasked on American wrestling television.
So looking at you, Ultimo Guerrero.
Right. But, confusion all around for everybody.
Well, let's start with this first match, Doug, which has a bit of confusion in the fact that we don't know one of the participants yet. Probably we'll find that out this weekend on Collision. But I want to start tonight with Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe versus Willow Nightingale and a partner of Willow's choosing that has not yet been announced. Doug, do you have any thoughts or ideas who Willow might pick? And how do you see this one going?
Well, I don't know who this is, but because I just pulled it up on Wikipedia, and Willow has a partner on Wikipedia.
Who do they have as Willow's partner?
Tam Nakano.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know who that is.
I don't either. Okay. Let's see, Uriah Tachuchi, better known by her ring name of Tam. I can say her ring name. She's Japanese.
So
hold on.
This is the broadcast.
This is where I need to share screens. Here we go. Her.
Oh, okay.
According to Wikipedia, anyway.
So this gets into the heart of what we were just referring to, though, right?
Right.
You have wrestlers who have not appeared on AEW television, and who many fans who are being asked to spend $59.99, I believe it is.
It's like WrestleMania.
who they don't know. So yeah, for me, this one is hard to predict because of the tag team factor. If it was a straight up Chris Statlander versus Willow Nightingale contest, I'd say that Willow Nightingale is going to take it. In this instance, where you can have a team lose without your AEW talent taking a pinfall, I believe Chris Statlander and Momo is going to win this one over Willow, and who looks to be a very credible partner for Willow.
Sure. Yes, I agree that, Willow's partner, whoever she may be, Wikipedia may be right, may be wrong,
Or it could be already in the bag and just not aired on TV yet, which is why it might not be official. But so, regardless, you're thinking that Willow is maybe not going to take this one because of the partner?
Yeah, the Nightingale team will lose, but Willow will not take a pin.
Agreed. This next one, Doug, and there's several of these type matches, and this is really kind of a New Japan and a CMLL thing where you have these multi-person matches where you throw 6 men, 8 men tag kind of matches, get a bunch of guys on a card. This one, though, there is some thematic throughput with it because you have the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada, who are a faction, against the Acclaimed, and the Acclaimed have brought in Okada's biggest nemesis in New Japan, the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Go Ace.
I mean, if you're going to have it, that's the perfect person to bring in to have it. But I don't see the Acclaimed and Tanahashi at this stage of Tanahashi's career going over a very hot act right now with the new elite, as it were.
No, I don't see the new elite going. Although I do kind of like the, president, vice president kind of dynamic that goes on there. And then you've got the Acclaimed and the elite, but you got 2 VPs, and I like that. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't see Ace and the Acclaimed going over at all. Sorry, boys.
No.
Everybody guys. Loves you, but you're not going over.
Doug, another 6-person tag match, and another match where we have a to be decided in this, but we have Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata taking on the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and darn it, we don't get our Bad Apple. He has been storyline at least injured. I don't know if that's a legit injury or to the Bounty Hunter or not, but do you have any idea who the Learning Tree might bring in as a partner? Do you have an answer for that one too?
I don't, dude. You should have pulled up Wikipedia. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say maybe Jeff Cobb shows up.
Oh, okay. I bet you that they've recorded this already, haven't they?
With this many matches, they probably had to. I mean, they had to start like 3 days ago to get all these done.
I love Jeff Cobb, so I'm all for that. Honestly, I'd love to see Jeff Cobb permanently on my television. That's how good Jeff Cobb is.
Yes.
I love Shibata. I think Shibata is great. Unfortunately, Shibata's role in America thus far has been to take a lot of pinfalls.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I see the Learning Tree right now retaining all their heel heat regardless of what happens to them. So I can see Jericho and Big Bill and Jeff Cobb, if it is Jeff Cobb, losing and Jericho blaming Jeff Cobb. or
there you go. Yeah. Blame the guy that's not going to be on TV, for another year till the next Forbidden Door or whatever.
I see a lot of heels going over in my predictions. So in this one, I'm almost thinking that it needs to be the faces. I don't know though. What do you think? Is this a Learning Tree night?
Yeah, I have to align with you on this one because I think they go over and then like yeah, it's not a learning tree. You know what I would love to see is Hook get more and more heat and build for Hook. So I would love to see something like Hook taking out Big Bill, and then we blame it on Jeff Cobb later. That's what I want to see.
I can see that because I do think that we need the faces to win because this next match is not going to be won by the face, and that is MJF versus Hechicero, who is an amazing wrestler, but there's no way in the world that MJF is losing to Hechicero.
There's no way, and MJF kind of set this up like a couple of weeks ago when he said he's going to be facing some random dude from Mexico to a general wrestling audience. MJF, our scumbag, is facing some random dude from Mexico.
Yeah, and he's not losing. There's no drama to this other than Hechicero is extremely good. But MJF is got to be the winner here. And I know I said that we have a lot of heels going over. I don't know. Is MJF in this scenario a heel? Is he a face? Is he a tweener, or is he just MJF in a category all to himself? I'm not sure where to classify him in this.
I love the idea that MJF is just MJF. He is a wrestling category all to himself. He is not face. He is not heel. He is not tweener. He is MJF, and he's better than all of us, Kevin, and we know it.
We absolutely know it. And good to have him back. And it will be fun to watch him go over in what is promising to be maybe a sleeper for match of the night, just because there's some bigger matches down at the end of the card that people will be paying attention to. These guys have the potential to steal the show.
And again, I think to that general audience, it's MJF and some random dude he's going to squash from Mexico,
which will not be the way that it goes down. Yeah. Now, speaking of matches that could steal the card, these two could do that on any night that they're paired together. Zack Sabre Jr. Could wrestle a broomstick to the match of the night. Instead, he gets Orange Cassidy, who is underrated as a worker when he's got the right opponent. These two will tear it up. My problem with predicting this one, Doug, is that Orange Cassidy doesn't lose very much, but I really don't want to see Zack Sabre Jr., who has such little exposure on AEW television and in America in general. I don't want to see him lose either. I think that there's a way for Orange Cassidy to lose this one and it be because of Trent Beretta or, something along those lines, so that he doesn't take a clean loss, but that Zack Sabre Jr. maintains mystique that I think he needs to maintain if he's only going to make sporadic appearances for Tony Khan.
See, and I think that's the thing here. Like, when are we going to see Zack Sabre Jr. again after this? If he's going to fall off the planet again for like 3-4 months or 8 months, whatever, what does a win like that you really get for Zack, and what does it really do to Orange? So I'm saying Orange gets the win here to keep some momentum going to build towards something bigger with Trent Beretta or Brett. So
Brett Beretta. I think he's teaming with Jethro Anawahi, so they're on the pre-show. We're not even getting into that. There's too many matches already.
Way too many matches.
We got a disagreement finally. We see this one going different directions, so that's good. Let's see if we agree or disagree on this next one, which is an Owen Hart Foundation tournament first round match. Oh. And again, for the third straight match that has a legit potential to steal the show because of the men involved. And that's Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi. Takagi is a world champion. And so New Japan can't just come in and have these matches where all their guys lose. So on the other hand, Bryan Danielson only has so many matches left in AEW, and I don't know that he wants to have a majority of those going out on his back. So I'm going Bryan Danielson on this one in a great show-stealing possible contest.
Man.
And you need a face to win a few more of these, I believe. So that's
you've convinced me with just that statement, because I'm just looking at the card here, and Yeah, because I was initially going to say my gut is saying, win, lose, or draw, it really doesn't matter. Danielson is going to win. And I know I probably say this way too much. We as fans are going to win with this match. That's who's going to be the ultimate winner here. But yeah, Brian will come out on top. You're right, because we need some faces to win throughout here.
And this is the third straight match that we're previewing here where we say that the fans are going to be the ones that really win. That's how good some of these matches are very likely to be on paper, if given enough time. Right. If they weren't on a 13-match card, they would be given enough time. That might be the only caveat to those predictions here. And, Doug, this next one is another one that will deliver in the ring. It's certainly delivered outside of the ring in the build-up to it, in the storyline surrounding it. You have the AEW Women's World Championship match. You have Toni Storm defending against Mina Shirakawa. I don't know, Doug. I'm going out on a limb here. I'm going to say that Mariah May somehow factors into this one. What do you think?
You think? Maybe just a smidge. Somehow, some way.
Do you think that they go all in, pardon the AEW pun, do you think they go all in on this particular pay-per-view to make a hard choice decision by Mariah May? Or do you think they still tease it out a little while longer as to who she goes with? Right now, she's trying to play peacemaker in the middle. There's got to be at least another step in the development of that storyline, or we go full nuclear here and Toni Storm gets jealous, gets upset. It's obvious that we're eventually going to get to Toni versus Mariah. So
how long do we have until Wembley this year? When is Wembley?
August. So we only have 2 months.
So this might be the time to go nuclear and then start building towards something huge at Wembley.
I agree. And I think for that reason, though, Toni Storm must retain. Mm-hmm. And I do think, though, that we'll see relationships shattered, lines drawn, and start that build for Toni versus Mariah. I'm not sure there's not a whole lot of analogies I can make to prior storylines where you've seen this kind of odd love triangle.
Right.
But it is over the top, and Toni's over the top, and Mariah and Mina have certainly followed suit, and it's been very enjoyable. Let's see how they pay it off. You both think Toni, though?
Yeah, Toni.
This next one, Doug, is a match for the other. This is a dual championship match on the women's side, and this is the TBS Championship and the New Japan World Strong Women's Championship. Winner take all. You have Mercedes Moné, who holds the TBS Championship, taking on Stephanie Valkyr, who is the New Japan Women's Strong Champion. Even though she's a CMLL talent, this is where it gets a little muddy. But the New Japan Strong promotion is a sort of an offshoot. It's out of the American Dojo, which is why you get North American wrestlers who predominantly make up quite a bit of that roster. I'm not that familiar with Stephanie's work outside of the VTRs that they've shown that, she looks legit, but Mercedes Moné is the superstar who's still early in her AEW run. How can it be anything other than Moné walking away with both titles?
Is this the title that Mercedes and Willow initially wrestled for, where Mercedes got hurt and Willow came away with the champ as the inaugural champion? Is that this title, the New Japan title?
I don't know if it was that one or not.
Okay.
But if so, I see where your wheels are turning storyline wise to move to Act 2. And that is Willow and Mercedes back at it again. Yeah,
because I never bet against the boss, but as I've said before, this isn't the boss. This is the CEO. It's a different person. It's a different critter. But in this particular case, I've got to go with the CEO.
Go with the CEO. Another one we have to agree on, because I just don't see the logic in giving both titles to a talent who is not yet established in America. That especially when you still have Mercedes, and this will be what, her second match, or did she have one? She finally had one on television, didn't she?
Did she? I don't know. I've kind of gotten lost in the Monet of it all.
This is either her second or third match, period. It's
Right.
mainly been appearances, interviews, so you have to have her win on this one. This next one, Doug, is going to be the palate cleanser. Don't worry about the selling. Don't worry about the psychology of it all. This will be the let's get a bunch of guys together and let's just do crazy stuff to pop the crowd. Probably be towards the end of the card to separate some of the bigger matches.
Yeah.
Give a different flavor to the pay-per-view so that the matches stop having so much sameness, which is a problem with 13-match cards. This next one is for the vacant TNT Championship, and it is a ladder match. You got Konosuke Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe, Jack Perry, Leo Rush, Dante Martin, and Doug, tell me what Wikipedia says is the one to be decided.
El Phantasmo.
That's got your spoilers here, I do believe. I'm going to say El Phantasmo is not walking out with this one. I feel confident in that. There's several guys on this list, Doug, that you can make legit cases for.
You can.
Leo Rush maybe isn't one of those, but I want to call out the fact that it was not 2 months ago that we, both of us, had a show where we agreed that Leo Rush was one of those should-have-beens who wasn't.
Yes.
He's actually making the most of a second opportunity with AEW. So there's a soft spot in me that for the talent involved there.
Yes.
I wish him to get it right.
Pull it together, brother. Pull it together. You got the skills.
I'd say that you can mark it down to being between Takeshita, who they're definitely trying to make into a star, Mark Briscoe, who is the OG fan favorite that the crowd will barely be behind. And then you got storyline wise, you got the scapegoat himself. I think that's probably where we're going with this, is that Jack Perry is the most logical choice to walk away to further hold the Khans hostage by taking their TNT championship.
And it also adds this legitimacy to the ego that the heel Jack Perry has, where, the Bucks were going to give him the title anyway. And then CD comes out and says, no, that's not how we do things around here. You got to earn that. Yeah. And then Jack goes and earns it then and says, okay, now what? That's that. I mean, that's wrestling 101, I think.
He may earn it with help from the elite and the vice president.
But he won't, but that won't be the way it's sold. He will earn it. He will
earn it the elite way.
Exactly.
So we agree that leaning towards Perry, multi-man matchups are hard because they can easily take another tact and save the storylines you think are going to happen for a Jack Perry victory and something else down the line. But it does make some booking sense as long as they're not, afraid of so many heels going over, because we are picking a lot of heels tonight.
Yes, we are.
Doug, these next two are very difficult ones to call, at least for me. And I think because they are both world championship matches, that they could affect one another, depending on how one goes, might give away how the other is going to go. Because again, do you want a couple of faces or a couple of heels, either one, winning the two big matches, or do you mix that up? I think they're going to mix it up. IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So you have your New Japan World Championship being decided on an AEW, basically an AEW pay-per-view.
And it's held by an AEW talent.
Yeah. Now, he hasn't held it very long, but Jon Moxley is going to be defending that New Japan Championship against Tetsuya Naito, who is a perennial main eventer in New Japan. I would think that New Japan probably wants their title back around someone who can make more regular appearances. Not that Moxley isn't great about flying over and doing this stuff. I think that, though, this is a great opportunity to have your New Japan guy go over on a guy who rarely loses on pay-per-view, but also to take the title back home to the promotion. So I'm actually going Naito on this one.
Man, I hate it when we do this, but I have to agree. I think it's time for that belt to go home. And it kind of telegraphs where at least I'm headed in the other main event title match. But yeah, I
Yep.
think there's a belt switch on this one.
Okay. So this next one, then, since we're in lockstep on this one, I could go either way on this next one. And I'm sure you probably have, because we think a lot alike, you probably think the same way I do. This is going to be a unbelievable match. This is one I cannot wait for. The AEW World Championship. Swerve Strickland defending against Will Ospreay. I think that Will Ospreay has been the face of AEW since he's arrived. He is obviously the next big thing. He hasn't lost. How do you have him lose? How can you stop that momentum? Can you? Is it his time? We're just going for it. Or do you go the alternate way of saying Swerve Strickland has been a champion who's played a heel, who's kind of become a tweener just because the fans are so into the act. It's still so fresh into his title reign. He just won that title at the beginning of this year, so it's still within months that we're talking that he has had it, and I would suggest that there's a lot more that he can do if they choose to keep the title on Swerve Strickland. I could book this one either way. It is hard for me, though, to bet against Will Ospreay, but I don't know if they find a way to have him lose his first match here to keep the title on Swerve. I do think that by the time we get to Wembley Stadium, though, he will be either champion or challenging for it. If they manage to keep it off of him tonight, he will be challenging for it in 2 more months' time. They could string it along for 2 months into a story.
I agree, because this one, I could go either way, but in my booking mind, the big booking brain is turning, right? All those gears are turning. You can probably see the smoke coming out of the headphones, but I see Will, taking the loss here, and Swerve holding on to that belt for now and building to Wembley when Ospreay can, slay the dragon in his home country and stand tall at the end of their biggest pay-per-view of their version of WrestleMania in his home country in an 80,000 seat arena as your new AEW World Champion.
And with AEW having difficulty domestically selling as many tickets as they have in years past, you can also save that big moment for what we know will be a big crowd.
Yes.
And a hot hometown crowd for Ospreay. If you pull the trigger on it, the only problem with booking this now is you have to make Will finally lose. And they have to figure out a way to do that in a way that does not cheapen your pay-per-view main event, where people expect there to be definitive outcomes. But you also have to do it in a way that isn't a straight-up loss, because Ospreay hasn't lost, and you want that momentum train still rolling to Wembley. So is it Don Callis screwing him here?
Absolutely. I don't think you need to go any further than that. It's Don Callis family. You could even work it to where Prince Nana maybe makes a behind the scenes a side deal just to make sure his boy, doesn't get the pin, with the Callis family, just to make sure, a little insurance policy of some kind. Or something like that Swerve never needs to know about, but if eventually Swerve finds out about it, is upset about it by the time they get to Wembley, God, I'm booking the whole thing right now, but by the time they get to Wembley, it is just Swerve and Ospreay in that main event. No other interference.
I don't know within 2 months' time who they could build up to be the big match challenger against Ospreay. That doesn't quick book like an MJF victory, or right. You'd have to do a lot real fast. It's already set in place that you could do Strickland Ospreay 2, and 1 is going to be so darn good that people will be begging for it again in 2 months. I like your booking, and I think that they can find a way to thread that needle to not let Will lose without losing too much.
Yes.
For now, though, man, it is still Swerve's house, and I have to say that between Ospreay and Strickland, you probably have my 2 favorite wrestlers in AEW right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the match, in the ring against each other. So again, we're going to win on this one, all of us.
Yep, it's happening. We're winning.
Doug, we got through that a lot faster than could have even imagined, considering how many matches AEW has stuffed that card with. So let's hit our big finish. That's Forbidden Door. We will not be on Sunday night because of Forbidden Door for that reason. So we're going to look at our big finish over the period of time since we've had our last broadcast. is what we'll cover here. So, Doug, let us talk about botch of the week.
So, my botch of the week, Kevin, is coming straight out of the news cycle today. And you didn't touch on it earlier, but how does WWE let a talent that they finally call up from the main roster? How do they just let his contract expire until, when, a month ago, they're telling him he's killing it. They bring him up from NXT and say, dude, you're awesome. You're killing it. You're going to be great. This is a man who has done everything that's been asked of him, even through that redemption arc or what retribution and all that nonsense. And then they cut Dijak loose. They were like, yeah,
what? I didn't hear this.
Yes, it was in the news cycle earlier today. He's tweeting about, basically the points I'm talking about here, and he tags, apparently I haven't seen the tweet, but he apparently tags Tony Khan, New Japan, TNA, Tommy Dreamer, tags a whole bunch of people in it because his contract ends tomorrow. As of tomorrow, he's done. No new contract, no negotiations, just nothing. He's done. He's done with WWE as of July 28th or June 28th.
That makes no sense.
How that is my botch. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you. Come on, Triple H. You've been doing so great. But we know that there have been contract issues in the past where, like, when Aleister Black was Aleister Black, he still had like a 30-day non-compete instead of his 90-day non-compete because he still had the part of his NXT contract, even though his main roster. Becky Lynch, her contract comes and goes. I get it. It's a different world. There's plenty of talent there, but this was good talent that you could have done. It's just frustrating for me to finally see this dude get an opportunity again, but not get an opportunity. However, I think in the long run, he will be better off for this because he is good to go and he's going to have no shortage of work.
He is so talented, and it's odd because, as you noted, Triple H, for the most part, has done a bang-up job. Shawn Michaels has done a bang-up job at NXT. For whatever reason, is after the black and gold days of NXT,
yes,
they have never managed to get Dijak right, despite having this amazing talent under their contract, which I guess is now going to go to Tony Khan land and or somewhere else. Hopefully, he doesn't end up just lost in the Tony Khan shuffle and his greatest opponent probably is the matches he had back in the old black and gold days with Keith Lee, and Keith Lee isn't exactly thriving in AEW any more than he was in WWE. So I hope for good things for Dijak. I had not heard that. This is the only reason I didn't cover it.
Yeah, I just pulled up, I just ran it through Perplexity and got like 4 different sources on it. But yeah, it says here, he's not officially being released. His contract is expiring tomorrow. So, but still.
So he might be the other guy who shows up in the ladder match, and El Phantasmo might not actually make it.
or it's Dijak in an El Phantasmo mask, and then Okada comes out and unmasks him for some unknown reason. I don't know.
Because they got the wrong mask and it just falls off.
Exactly. Somebody had to whip it together in like an hour. But that's my botch.
That's better than the botch I had. My botch was because I definitely think that is the botch of the week now that I know this. I was just going to complain about the fact that once again, Dynamite cuts off with 10 minutes left to go. My DVR does not record it. Why, oh, why can AEW get this right? NXT does overrun almost every week. My DVR records it. Same for Raw on USA when they have an overrun, which is not as often as it used to be. NXT is almost every week. It never fails. However, every time that AEW decides to have an overrun, it kicks off for me, and I have to go to YouTube and watch the rest of the match because they posted the rest of it to YouTube because they know that that's happening to so many people. Why can't they get that right? It's annoying.
Yes, that is truly annoying.
Performance of the week, Doug.
Dude.
We might be in some lockstep on this one, too.
How could Bo Dallas? I mean, that Bo Dallas Uncle Howdy. I mean, not the Bo Dallas Uncle Howdy, but the Bo Dallas, because that is such a Bo Dallas, man, for that interview with himself and the promo he cut about Bray and just Bo Dallas. That's all I got. It's just Bo Dallas, man.
I can't argue with that at all. I'm along the same lines as slightly to the perpendicular to what you're talking about. I was going to call out WWE's booking and production staffs. When you want to talk about flawless execution last week of two major debuts that we all knew was coming and that we waited so long for, when you have that much anticipation, it's easy for the actual product to end up being a letdown. But both the debut of the Wyatt Six on Raw and then following that up just 3 days later with the debut of Jacob Fatu joining the Bloodline on SmackDown, they pulled off two major events flawlessly that has had the wrestling world talking. Both were just absolutely fantastic. Immediately framed the Wyatt Six on Raw and Jacob Fatu on SmackDown as we are just now seeing these folks, but these are big deal sports entertainers who are already at or near the tops of the card. You got main eventers and you minted them in one night in memorable fashion.
Absolutely. The intro of the Wyatt Six was great, and I like that they're the Wyatt Six, not six, the number six. But I really like that because they're a bunch of sickos, right? You're not really going to delve too deeply into the supernatural. That was really great. But I tell you, I popped like up off my couch when Jacob Fatu. I did not see that one coming, man. I popped. I mean, we had hints of the Wyatt Six coming for quite a while. So when it finally happened,
excellently done too.
Absolutely. So when it finally happened, you're like, okay, this is it. It's happening. But I didn't expect. It could be Royal Rumble before I saw Jacob Fatu on my TV, but no, it's like it's Jacob Fatu. I didn't mark out as hard as I did when I saw Okada when we were in Charleston, but it was close.
To see the look on Solo's face when he knew what was about to happen too, the laugh, and then that vicious Samoan splat to the outside through the table. Immediately looks like the most dangerous person on all of SmackDown.
Exactly.
Love it.
That is how you make a statement with your debut.
Absolutely. Both cases. And that's why I call out just everyone involved, the talent involved who executed it, the bookers, the production staff who gave it just the right camera frames in both nights. Excellent work by everyone involved.
Yeah.
Doug, match of the week.
Man, I think I've given this to this dude, thumbs up for him already. This dude has been somewhere in match of the week, performer of the week, I think in our last 3 of these, but I gotta give a nod to Kyle O'Reilly and Zack Sabre. Because I love that wrestling style. I really love the flippy floppy high flyer stuff. But then when it comes grounded like this, but then you've got 2 so well matched guys who are just like these vicious technical wrestlers. It just, I didn't pop as much as I did for Fatu, but it was still just that it was great. I've loved Sabre for a while. I've come to appreciate Kyle O'Reilly so much more than I did before, especially on this run, because clearly I'm a Kyle O'Reilly fanboy now, and I'm not even sure how that happened, but here I am.
I'm with you, man. I loved Kyle all the way back to the Ring of Honor days. So even before he was involved with Adam Cole and everyone in NXT and then moving on to AEW. Zack Sabre Jr., one of those guys that I've always wished was on my television more. When I see him, he's just different. He has a style that is very unique, but it also looks legit, like catch style, submission style, ground wrestling there. He's just dissecting you. They put on an amazing contest. That's my match of the week also. I'm with you on that one.
And Sabre has really beefed up from what he used to be, which is kind of hilarious. But, because I remember the first time I saw Sabre, I was like, who is this little dude? He is, my goodness, what is going on? And then I was like, oh, my bad. My bad. But
this little dude can tie you into knots and then, pull you apart. But yes, match of the week. Doug, we are in agreement. We will see this weekend how many of our in agreement predictions come true, as I mentioned earlier in the show, because Sunday is Forbidden Door. That's why we're coming to you live tonight to get you ready. So we will not be on Sunday. You see our schedule scrolling across the bottom of the screen. We will return to our new broadcast on Money in the Bank weekend.
Ooh.
A note about that one, though. July 7th, we will be reviewing Money in the Bank, which will take place the day before. However, tonight we're on a special night. That night will be on a special time. We will be on at 7 instead of 8 because it is Money in the Bank weekend. As part of Money in the Bank weekend, we're getting an NXT pay-per-view as well. So we do not want to interfere with the premium live event of NXT. We will be your pregame that night. Join us at 7. We will review Money in the Bank. We'll get you ready for NXT. We have a whole lot of great content coming throughout the month of July. We just appreciate you watching. However you watch us, whenever you watch us, thank you.
We'll
see you then.
See ya. Now go watch some wrestling or some old men argue about stuff for an hour or so.
See ya.
See ya.